Go ahead.
Thanks, Jen. There have been some calls to establish safe passage corridors for humanitarian aid purposes. Is that something that the U.S. is at all working on? And then how would it be enforced? Because in 2014, the Russians killed a whole bunch of Ukrainians who were trying to flee in a similar fashion.
Well, we are in close contact with Ukrainian leadership to support their efforts, and you're absolutely right. Humanitarian corridors are absolutely critical to help evacuate civilians, provide urgently needed humanitarian aid such as food, water, medical supplies to ensure civilians can travel safely. We've seen and continue to see devastating attacks on cities and infrastructure, including schools, hospitals, and houses that are catastrophic at the hands of the Russian military. So what we need to see is sincerity about the implementation of humanitarian access, work to establish that quickly. In terms of the implementation of that, I don't think I have any more details to convey here, but I think obviously saying you're going to do humanitarian corridors or conveying an openness to that, to your point, is very different from allowing food, water, medical supplies, and civilians to move. And certainly there would need to be an implementation component, and they would need to take the implementation of it seriously.
So is that something that then the U.S. is going to discuss with NATO about potentially getting involved in doing?
I just don't have more details on the implementation for you to outline from here, but certainly, the establishment and of humanitarian corridors, the implementation of it, the Russian leadership taking that effort seriously would be something we would welcome.
And then following up on Phil's question about the cyber attacks, obviously it didn't happen leading up to the invasion, but do we have, as the U.S., a capability of knowing whether or not they tried to do something like that?
We have a range of capabilities. I'm not going to get into them from here.
Okay. And then what happens if, you talked about the legal reviews happening for the war crime element earlier. What happens next if the review finds that Putin did commit war crimes? Then what happens?
Well, there's a range of means. I would say first, we have our own internal review going on, and if we as we continue that, we will provide any information to both the International Criminal Court, the UN, other entities that are investigating from an international standpoint. We also help pass a resolution at the UN Human Rights Council to establish a commission of inquiry, which would be an entity where we could provide information that could support future investigations and also determine, to your question, I think, accountability measures. We also joined 44 other countries in establishing an expert mission through the OSCE to investigate possible violations and abuses of international human rights and humanitarian law by Russia and its forces. So typically, obviously, we have a range of resources here, as other countries do, and our focus would be feeding that into the international process.
In terms of what you just laid out there, and I know yesterday you said that you didn't see Russia being booted from the UN Security Council because they have a permanent seat. How do you reconcile potential that you have a member of the Security Council that's flagrantly undermining the charter? Is there anything that can be done, especially if he is found to be committing war crimes?
Well, I think that's part of the accountability question, right, Jacqui? And obviously determination about the future role of any country in an organization would be up to the member countries of that organization. We are one. We are not the only one, but certainly accountability would be a part of that process.
Because it would be a concern for the U.S. or for the UN for their, for everything they stand for to have.
I think the UN has been, and the vast majority of countries in the UN have been incredibly aligned and outspoken about the horrific and barbaric actions that they have seen by the Russian military and at the direction of President Putin on the ground.
One last one. Zelensky said yesterday that he felt like the whole world was too late. What's the president's response to that?
I would say that, President Zelensky has been standing up courageously and bravely in a moment where his country, his own security, his own concerns about his security are understandably under threat. The United States has been working for months to build a global coalition that will hold President Putin accountable. We have been providing a historic amount of security assistance, military assistance, humanitarian assistance, economic assistance to President Zelensky and the Ukrainian leaders, and we will certainly continue to stand by his side. Go ahead, Kelly.